Now, that same year, when President Reagan held a summit with Soviet Premier Gorbachev, Newton called it, quote, the most dangerous summit for the West since Adolf Hitler met with Chamberlain in 1938 at Munich. And I love the idea that, like, Gorbachev is a Hitler figure. This guy who wouldn't even shoot back during, like, the protests that overthrew his government is like a Hitler, you know? The future Pizza Hut spokesman Gorbachev as a Hitler kind of figure.
R.I.P. Hitler, you would have loved Pizza Hut.
That does tell you where our boy Newt is on, like, the political alignment chart, right? He sees Ronald Reagan as a fucking Neville Chamberlain type. Now, that same year, Gingrich made the news for comparing a House race that was in question in Indiana to the Holocaust. Here's a quote about it. I'm going to read you the quote, Molly. Here's a quote about it as relayed by an article in Mother Jones. And it starts with Newt here. We've talked a lot in recent weeks about the Holocaust, about the incredible period in which Nazi Germany killed millions of people, and in particular came close to wiping out European Jewry. If someone said to me 2 days ago, talking frankly about the McIntyre affair, in which Democrats refused to seat the winner of a House race until they'd conducted a recount, and the efforts by the Democratic leadership to not allow the people of Indiana to have their representative, but instead to impose upon them someone else, something in which he quotes German poet Martin Niemoller. I have never quite until tonight been able to link it together. Niemoller, the great German theologian, said at one point, when the Nazis came for the Jews, I did nothing. And when the Nazis came for me, there was no one left. Right? I think it's Niemoller. But this, like, so basically the Democrats are like, well, until we finish a recount, we're not going to sit this guy because there's questions about the election. And fucking Newt is like, this is the same as the Holocaust.
Did they kill all the voters?
Did they murder everybody? It just kind of seems like they were doing a thing that legally is a part of the election, like having a recount, waiting to seat the elected leader until you do the recount. Is that the same as killing millions of people in factories of death?
There needs to be a swear jar for people who abuse the Niemoller poem.
Yeah.
You need to put $1 in the jar because that was not appropriate.
I think anytime you reference it, you have to lose, like, it should be like a Yakuza thing where you have to give up one of the joints of a finger, right? And maybe that'll cause people to be, like, a lot more careful about when they deploy that bad boy.
I heard it in closing arguments at a trial last month, a trial for a man who is a white nationalist.
Amazing.
And his lawyer's argument was, this is free speech. You're trying him for his free speech. And in his closing arguments, he refers to the Niemoller poem, except, the poem starts, first they came for the communists and I said nothing because I was not a communist. And then they came for the Jews and I said nothing because I was not a Jew.
Uh-huh.
But he says he's going to quote the poem, but he says, first they came for one group.
Yeah.
And then they came for another group. And it's like, what were the groups? What were
Anyone
the groups,
who
Terry?
goes for any group is a Nazi.
What were the groups, Terry?
Yeah. First, they came for the Nazis, and I did not speak out because I was not a Nazi. Oh, man. It's very funny.